Yo, what is up guys, Delboy here, aka Blue Collar Sports TV. Hopefully you guys are doing well. If you're new here, smash that like, hit subscribe, all of that good stuff. So this video is a quick preview and prediction for Adam Kownacki versus Robert Helenius 2. This fight goes down on the undercard of Tyson Fury versus Deontay Wilder 3. And I have to say, I am looking forward to this rematch. First time around, obviously, Robert Helenius scored an upset victory. He knocked out Adam Kownacki in the 4th round. But, all the way through, it was quite a fun fight. And I expect the same thing again. I believe it's going to be fun. And once again, I expect this fight to end in a knockout, no matter who wins. But, all in all, I'm looking forward to it. It's a part of a really good card. So, man, let's get it. Let's briefly break down the tale of the tape. We shall start with Robert Helenius as he won the last fight. Robert Helenius has a record of 30 wins, 3 defeats, 19 of his 30 wins coming by way of knockout. Adam Kownacki has a record of 20 wins, 1 defeat, 15 of his 20 wins come by way of knockout. Robert Helenius is listed as 6'6.5" with a 79-inch reach, whereas Adam Kownacki is listed as 6'3" with a 76-inch reach. So Helenius has a 3.5-inch height advantage and a 3-inch reach advantage. And, the height and reach of Helenius can definitely play a factor in this rematch. I mean, let's be honest, it did in the first fight, so I wouldn't be surprised to see that happen again. So the height and reach of Helenius is definitely important going into this fight. Both of these guys are orthodox fighters. Robert Helenius is 37 years old, whereas Adam Kownacki is 32 years old. So Kownacki does have the youth advantage, but going into this fight, I'm not really sure who is in better shape, to be honest, in terms of, wear and tear, because Helenius has been knocked out a couple of times and has had some bad injuries. But Adam Kownacki himself, he got knocked out in the last fight against Helenius, and he's been involved in several wars, so it's kind of hard to judge who is the fresher going into this fight. I would probably still say Kownacki, but on the flip side, Helenius is certainly more experienced. I mean, Helenius has been in there with guys like Dillian Whyte, Erkan Tepe, Gerald Washington, Derek Chisora, Johan Duhaupas, Sergey Liakovic, Samuel Peter, Lamont Brewster, and on top of that, Helenius had a much more extensive amateur background in comparison to Adam Kownacki. So, Helenius is definitely more experienced going into this fight. But now the tale of the tape is out of the way, let's break down what I believe each guy should do to win. And at the end of this video, I will, reveal my prediction. I guess we shall start with the loser of the first fight, Adam Kownacki. And by the way, somehow he's favourite in this rematch. I'll get to that at the end of this video. But obviously Adam Kownacki first time around, he got found wanting in terms of defense and he got knocked out. We know Adam Kownacki is a shorter heavyweight and his game is always going to be pressure, right? And he shouldn't change that going into this rematch. One thing about getting knocked out like that in a rematch, sometimes guys can be tentative, and sometimes they'll box more conservatively than we're used to seeing. And Adam Kownacki in this rematch can't afford to do that. Kownacki is not a great boxer on the outside. He's not particularly fast. His jab isn't all that effective from range. Neither is his straight right hand. I don't really believe he can afford to be more cautious, stand off Helenius, and let Helenius dictate range and be comfortable in this fight, because if he does that, there's every chance that Helenius could knock him out again. So the goal for Kownacki in this rematch, once again, is pressure. But obviously in this rematch, he definitely needs to tighten up. One thing about Kownacki is, we all know that he's always shown a lack of regard for defense. And in this fight, he needs to adjust that. Kownacki's never going to be a guy who comes in low, moves his head and whatnot. He's never going to be that sort of fighter. He's overweight, he's not athletic, he can't really carry out that style. But one thing he can do is be more disciplined with his high guard. First and foremost, Kownacki's high guard right now, when he does use it, is very porous. Sometimes it's far too easy to punch through or punch around, and if you look at the first fight with Robert Helenius, he was actually doing a good job of sneaking that left hook behind Kownacki's guard. In this fight, Kownacki needs to be much more tight with that guard and even actually try to pull off an active guard so he can kind of adjust as Robert Helenius is throwing punches and block those shots accordingly. And obviously, behind that high guard, Adam Kownacki needs to apply pressure, jab his way in, get his weight on the inside, and then work Robert Helenius up close. Robert Helenius, he can shorten his punches at mid-range, but he's not particularly a great inside fighter. He's got a decent uppercut on the inside, but that's really it in my opinion. So Kownacki needs to get to that inside area in this fight, and when he's there, he needs to work very hard. Don't let Robert Helenius clinch you, hold you. Don't let him off a hook. Continuously work Robert Helenius. Hooks to the head, uppercuts through the middle, and body shots. One thing about Robert Helenius in his career is that he's always had, I would say, questionable stamina. Not quite like David Price level stamina, but Robert Helenius' stamina has never been quite the best. I mean, go back and watch the Dillian Whyte fight. He actually started that fight quite well, and as the fight went on, he had less and less in the tank. Same goes for the Chisora fight, the Gerald Washington fight, the Johan Duhaupas fight. Robert Helenius, several times in his career, has shown a questionable gas tank, to say the least. And on top of that, Helenius doesn't have the greatest chin anyway, so, you know, the more and more this guy gets tired, the more susceptible he is to being stopped. So it's up to Kownacki to really try and make Robert Helenius work hard and take something out of his gas tank, and he does that by applying pressure in a more educated fashion, a more defensively sound fashion, but nevertheless he still needs to be quite relentless, and he needs to maintain a good work rate to get Helenius to start slowing down, get his hands to drop, and get him to be more susceptible to being knocked out. Ultimately, Kownacki needs to do what he's always done and be a pressure fighter, but just go in there with a tighter guard, a more active guard, and a little more attention to defense. And also, don't try to lunge in with shots from like the outside or mid-range, because if Helenius sees that coming, he can time you with that right hand or the left hook, And if you look at the first fight, the actual official knockdown, Kownacki was kind of guilty of lunging in, and he was timed by Robert Helenius. He can't afford to keep lunging in from the outside or mid-range. He needs to get to the inside first, preferably behind a high guard and a nice ramrod jab, and once he's on the inside, that's when he lets his hands go and starts working. And yeah, ultimately, Kownacki needs to be a pressure fighter, but a slightly more educated pressure fighter. Kownacki's got the gas tank, he's got the punch output to really trouble Helenius, but just a little more defense is required for him to win this rematch. As for Robert Helenius, I mean, what should he do in this fight? Ultimately, Robert Helenius is the bigger puncher in this fight. He's the taller, longer man, and he's the more technically proficient fighter. I think Robert Helenius does his best work when he's at range, when he's managing the contest kind of thing. So he needs to be dictating where this fight is fought. If Kownacki stays on his chest on a regular basis, there's every chance that Helenius gets beat, but he needs to try and keep this fight on the outside for as long as possible because, jab for jab on the outside, I don't believe Kownacki can outbox Robert Helenius, to tell you the truth, and Robert Helenius' power punches from the outside are so much more effective than Adam Kownacki's. The longer Adam Kownacki is on the outside, the more likely he is to get knocked out, and vice versa. The longer Kownacki's on the inside, the more likely Helenius is to be knocked out. So Helenius needs to dictate this fight with his jab and be consistent with the jab. Vary the jab from body to head. That hard jab to the pit of the stomach against a smaller pressure fighter like Kownacki could be a very effective shot for Helenius going into this fight. And also that jab to the body can potentially set up that right hand to the head. And as we know from the first fight, that shot can definitely hurt and stop Adam Kownacki. So the jab for Robert Helenius is going to be very key for him in this fight. And ultimately, Helenius needs to be the guy taking that half step back, not allowing his back to touch the ropes, and he needs to do his utmost to keep this fight in centre ring. If Kownacki does, try to lunge in and close the distance that way, well, Helenius always has that short right hand. He's actually got quite a cultured right hand. He can throw it really straight, he can throw it over his shoulder, and he can shorten that punch up as well. So he needs to be on the lookout for Kownacki to lunge in. That cultured right hand is definitely a weapon for him in this fight. One combination also, a simple combination that could work against Kownacki is the straight right hand left hook combination. In fact, it worked in the first fight. Again, Kownacki doesn't have an educated guard. It's not an active guard or anything like that. And if you throw that first right hand, Kownacki is going to be preoccupied with that shot, and he's not really anticipating the left hook to come behind the right hand, and you can punch around Kownacki's guard quite easily. So I think the right hand left hook combination for Robert Helenius could actually be very fruitful for him in this fight. Step in with the right hand and come back with a left hook. I think that left hook lands every time against Adam Kownacki, if I'm being honest. So the right hand left hook combination could be very successful for Helenius in this fight. I mean, go back and watch the first fight, the first official knockdown. That's the exact combination he threw. Stepped in with a right hand, followed up with a left hook. Down went Adam Kownacki. I think he needs to try and replicate that combination in this fight. And ultimately, Helenius is a tall boxer puncher. He likes to keep it at range, behind the jab, and look for that straight right hand. Ultimately, it's down to him to keep this fight at range for as long as possible and walk Adam Kownacki onto a big shot. I'm not entirely convinced that Helenius can outbox Kownacki for 12 rounds. I'm not convinced he's got the gas tank to do that or the work rate to do that. So he needs to be playing the boxer puncher in this fight. While he needs to be keeping it from range, he can't afford to be too passive. He needs to be stepping into his shots, really trying to hurt Kownacki, and basically attempting to knock him out. Because Kownacki, again, like I said, is the more active fighter. I think he's got a better gas tank. And I would imagine that the PBC and Al Heyman would like Kownacki to win this rematch. So, yeah, Helenius needs to try and knock out Kownacki from distance, from range kind of thing. But, yeah, I mean, ultimately, I see this rematch as a 50-50. I think if these guys fought 10 times, there would be all sorts of results going either way kind of thing. And, before I make my official prediction, one thing I will say, I am actually betting on Robert Helenius going into this fight. He won the first fight, yet he is still quite a big underdog going into this rematch. So in terms of betting, I would say to you guys, bet on Helenius based on those odds. But my official prediction, actually, just a gut feeling, I've got a sneaky feeling Adam Kownacki is going to win this rematch. I think he's going to weather an early storm in the first 4-5 rounds, and after that I think he will successfully close the distance, start to work Helenius, wear him down and stop him in the mid to late rounds. So I've got Adam Kownacki winning this rematch by a mid to late round stoppage. However, I would say to you guys, look at the bookies' odds. The odds on Helenius are very good right now. Well, particularly in the UK. I'm not sure about America. And I would be betting on Robert Helenius. So there you go. Share your thoughts below. What do you make of this fight? Who are you picking to win? I'm looking forward to it, and I look forward to your opinions on this particular fight. Share your thoughts below. Beanie Guy Delboy. Peace.